I'm just setting it up. Opening session of the 2020 Virtual Impact Summit.
Hello.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning, Catherine. How are you?
I am very good. Your hair looks lovely.
Oh, thank you.
I like it a lot.
Thanks so much. Great.
You have a professional microphone.
Yes, I got this one because I've been doing a lot of recordings and I love it. I really love it. It sounds much better than, when I'm using my laptop, and I just like it. Yeah.
That's good. So before we have a few that might be, kind of in and watching, but we don't have too many on. So I did update the thing just a little bit more because we did a practice webinar. So I have 3 different points in some of the questions that we talked about that I'll stop and like poll the participants. So the first one will ask them, be honest, do you achieve single deep focus in your work?
Yeah.
And then, so hopefully when we're talking about that. And then the second one will come in when we start talking about women seeking funding. And
Yes.
I'm hoping I'll have the opportunity to talk about We Venture Services, how we like to help women, find access to funding, whether it's SBA loans or other opportunities, angel investment, whatever. But we'll do a poll there asking if they remember, because the talk before you pointed out that the year that legislation requiring a woman to have a male co-signer
Mm-hmm.
was finally enacted. So I have a
Mm-hmm.
kind of a trick question, what year did she say that
Yeah.
that law was kind of finally passed, getting rid of that requirement, then the name of it for extra bonus points. And then we have a giveaway from one of our sponsors that I'm going to do a follow-up. So that's the only kind of,
Yeah, perfect.
and then when we talk about a little bit later, if we get to, oh, sorry, my poll 3. The myth that it's unicorn or nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I did some poll questions so we can ask the audience who they are. Are you a business owner or not? What
Yes.
percent of our webinars are? Do you have a partner or not? And then how many employees do you have? So
Perfect.
we could just get to know.
Yeah, who's in the audience? That sounds
Because
fantastic.
with the webinar format, unfortunately, they're not on video, so they just have the chat on the side. And then if you look at the bottom of your, and you probably have done this, but just to make sure, but there's the Q&A feature.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so we can use that to decide how,
Great.
what questions we'll tackle.
Very good. I'll keep that open right here. Awesome.
I'm so excited. All right, I'm gonna toggle over because while we're gonna do this Facebook Live. I think I saw you already in the private discussion group.
Yes.
So this will broadcast into that private group.
Fantastic.
Have the fires and the smoke been?
Yeah, it's been better. There's still some smoke today, so the air quality is not perfect, it's moderate. But yesterday we had a really great day. So it's gonna come and go like this for weeks, until it starts raining, hopefully sometime in November. But yeah, yesterday was a nice reprieve. in the sense that it was blue skies again and just, great air.
Yeah.
But it's going to come and go for a bit.
Yeah. It's just devastating, some of the pictures.
Oh my God. Yeah. It's just insane. Like just whole neighborhoods, whole areas, national parks completely destroyed. But I think like part of it is natural and it needs to happen, like in nature, like fire is like one of the key elements. And this, like we perceive it as like destruction because, people's homes are being lost and, lots of areas are being burnt, but some of it is natural. And I was reading this article in the New York Times that was saying that because we're not letting it burn fully, it's actually getting worse. Like, because nature does need that burn to happen. Um, so anyway, it's a complicated issue. But now in California, we're used to it. I feel like for the last 3 years, especially in October, it's always happened. Now, this happened much earlier, and it was because of the lightning.
So it's funny because Florida, we have a lot of fires as well, and we do what's called controlled burns to try to control the the growth and scrub and stuff that's all around.
Yes.
But our fire season must be opposite of yours because this is obviously with hurricane. This is our peak rainy season. But I can remember 2 springs where just it felt like half the state was on fire. You know what I mean? From various, and a lot of times it is lightning strikes, but it's usually that March, April, by May we're getting some rain.
Right.
But the smoke just blows and blows and
oh,
it's terrible. Well, I'm seeing a few more people are starting to join us, which I'm getting so excited about. Welcome, everyone. And this is different for us because a lot of the virtual program that we've been doing for the center so far, we're not really at risk ever of going over the 250 point where we have to switch it over to a webinar. So this is actually the first webinar format on Zoom that I've had to host. So for those of you who are joining and are used to our We Venture meetings where we can all see each other and chat, because we had so many register, we had to switch to the webinar format because if everyone decided to join, we want to have capacity for that. But that means we are limited to just kind of you all communicating with us in the chat and using that Q&A feature. It is, Jen. It's an awesome problem to have.
Yes.
Fantastic. We'll give everyone a couple minutes to join in. Did you get a chance to see any else of the video? I know I sent you a little preview link. Did you look at it?
Yes, I did. I did look. I think it's come together really well. So awesome job. So organized and like really professional.
That's good. I thought Duncan did just a beautiful job in our production team, because you all recorded these from your home and, from the other speakers, most people were sheltering at home. And so he really, through the intros and stuff, made it all still come together and feel real cohesive.
Beautiful job.
Okay, I'm going to start the Facebook Live. I'm going to try to go live. I think I got to start it over. I'll do it one more time. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. All right, Sandra, you ready?
Yes.
All right, everyone, it's 1 o'clock and it is Friday, August 28th. And this is a day we have been eagerly awaiting here at WeVenture because this is officially our opening session of the 2020 Virtual Impact Summit. My name is Catherine Rudloff, and I am the Executive Director of WeVenture. And it is really my honor to be sharing not only our next speaker that we will have joining me today, but this entire summit with all of you that are joining us, whether you're at home, whether you're at work with your colleagues, if you're going to be watching this later this weekend with your friends as part of a watch party. We are so grateful that you have taken this time to invest in yourself, to renew your motivation, and to seek out inspiration in this difficult time. I think we could all use some good news. There is so much going on in the world, from the natural disasters that Sandra and I were just talking about, to our issues of social justice and politics and the terrible hurricane happening. And sometimes we need to remind ourselves that it's okay for self-care, that it's okay to spend some time filling your cup. And that is exactly what we have designed this Impact Summit to be about, to inspire the amazing clients that WeVenture served, all of you who are professional women, small business owners, entrepreneurs, who have handled all of these challenges with such grace and grit and determination. And we wanted to provide you a weekend and an opportunity to fill your cup. So thank you for being here today. And of course, to all of our male allies who are with us, thank you for being a part of the conversation. We are so glad that you are here with us as well. Just a few housekeeping items. I am really excited to report that because we've had such great response to this virtual Impact Summit, we have over 450 registered participants right now. We had to switch from just a Zoom meeting to a Zoom webinar, which means that for those of you watching out there, we do not have the ability to see you. So Sandra and I just see the chat. So I encourage you to open the chat feature and communicate with us and the other participants. And then we will use that Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom if you have a question that you would like she and I to address. And that's how you can ask us directly to go there. So please utilize that, and we welcome everyone to chat and get to know each other as much as you can. And then I'm going to share my screen just a moment. We have just two quick little, oh, I don't want you to not see we have just a little bit of our opening because I like everyone to make sure that we understand who WeVenture is and what we are all about. So WeVenture, we like to say our tagline, we're accelerating business growth for female entrepreneurs. And we are actually a program of the BIS College of Business at Florida Tech. We were established in 2007, and we are funded in part by a cooperative agreement with the U.S. Small Business Administration. And our goal is to ignite the power of female entrepreneurs. Well, what does that mean? Well, just to give you a snapshot of the impact that WeVenture has in the community for the clients we serve through low and no cost business education, training, and leadership development programs. In the 2018-2019 year, we had over 623 unique clients. We helped 29 new businesses launch, and our clients generated over $5.5 million in gross revenue, and we helped create 31 jobs right here in our local community. And that's not all. Like, we really strive to be that local voice and resource for professional women and be able to help women and entrepreneurs at every stage of their career in business development. So as part of that really lofty goal, every year we host a leadership conference. And while normally we might gather in a ballroom, or we've been at the Henniger Center and we've had 150, 250 of us come together in person, that was impossible this year. But the beauty of switching to this virtual event meant we have this amazing lineup of speakers, really nationally renowned women that were able to record talks right from their own home and bring them to you all. And I'm so excited that Sandra was able to join us for this kickoff, because her book really, let me go into my sponsors first, but her book really stood out to me when we were putting the speaker lineup together as something that our clients need to hear, and that would resonate with them. So I'm so excited that we'll get started. But first we have to do this, of course, important business of thanking our sponsors, our presenting sponsor, Bisque Venture, and some of our equity partners, Wells Fargo and Wiederman Malik. Their investment makes all of our programming year-round possible. And we have some fantastic event sponsors that really stepped up, and we're so grateful that Bank of America and Health First, 8x8, L3 Harris, FPL, Collins Aerospace, and all of these wonderful sponsors for supporting not just the Impact Summit, but for WeVenture, and so many of our clients. A lot of these individuals and businesses work with our clients as well. And then, of course, our League of Extraordinary Investors. And these are the individuals or businesses that commit to us at that $1,000 level every year. And again, their continued support helps make all of our programming possible, not just this one event. So thank you to all of our extraordinary investors. And now let's talk about Sandra. So I'm so excited because she is the founder and CEO of Seeker Health, and now has a business, Adnexy. Is that how you pronounce it, Sandra?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And as I mentioned, she is the author of a book, The New Startup Mindset. And in her book, she really challenges the notion of what it means to be an entrepreneur and to have a successful startup. And it is a quick read, and it is one that I knew our clients would just so benefit from and would love to hear with. And I think that her message, I've seen you speak on a different podcast. There we go. There's your book. And I think you are catching fire, and you made it to the top of some Amazon best-selling lists for the women.
Yeah,
in
actually,
business,
the
right?
book's done great. Yes, the book has made it as to #1 spot in the category of startups and women and business in Amazon. And it actually won an award. It won the International Book Award for 2020 for the category of entrepreneurship and small business.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so, well, congratulations.
Thank you.
I know there are so many people that have an awesome book inside them, but setting aside the time to make it happen and to get it out there, that is an awesome accomplishment in and of itself. So congratulations.
Thank you.
So let's begin with just sharing a little bit more about your story. And for those, let's assume that everyone here has already watched your talk. We put it out and that they've seen your talk. But in that, you didn't get to really go into about your story in Seeker Health. So can you tell us what was Seeker Health and what kind of led for you to start that business?
Sure, I would love to. So Seeker Health was a patient finding platform, a digital patient finding platform. The whole purpose of the company was to help biopharmaceutical companies that were bringing new treatments to market find the patients that would participate in their clinical trials and enable that treatment to go through the clinical trials and eventually to reach those who needed them. Now, I worked for 15 years in the biopharmaceutical industry as an employee, right? And if we start the story around the year 2014, I'm working at a small biotech company by the name of Nora Therapeutics, and they're developing a drug for recurrent miscarriage for women who've had 3 or more miscarriages. And as they're going into this clinical trial, they're really struggling to find the participants that they need to complete the clinical trial. And so at that time, my role was in strategic marketing. It wasn't really my responsibility to enroll this trial, but I had some ideas. I knew where these women were. They were actually online. They were on Facebook. They were on Google trying to find information. And the idea was, why don't we intersect them where they are on these social and online channels with information about this clinical trial. Now, in biopharma, we usually hire vendors to do the work that needs to get done. And as I was trying to hire companies to help me put together this compliant campaign, I realized that people weren't doing this type of work. Like there wasn't really an incumbent, a business that was providing this type of work. And so what ended up happening was that I patched together a campaign for my employer. The trial enrolled, and then the company decided to not pursue this treatment, not continue to pursue the development of this treatment. And the company went out of business. And at that point, I had, this fork in the road. Should I go and get another job, just like I had here, polish my resume, send it out to recruiters? I knew that deal. Or should I go start a company, because I had come so close to understanding that, number one, there was this incredible need to find patients. I had an understanding of where they were, and I hadn't been able to buy the solution that I wanted to buy. And so, of course, I decided to start a company, and that company became Seeker Health. Seeker, because we were going to go find these patients and bring them to the clinical trials that they could, help then to generate the data to then file those drugs for approval. And so initially, Seeker Health began as a service. And the service that I was going to provide was something that I could actually do on my own. And I could do it without having to really make any significant investment of money. So I was going to offer Facebook and Google campaigns for clinical trials. To do that, I would use the Facebook advertising system, which I had to learn. I would use the Google advertising system, which I also had to learn. And I would bring my marketing know-how and my expertise from the past in crafting the correct messages, right? So it started out as a service, but then as I went in and worked with our customers and had, 4 to 5 customers that were giving me feedback, I realized that our service had to evolve into a product. It had to evolve into a total platform that would not only do the advertising campaign, but that would also then help process the patient all the way until the patient enrolled in the clinical trial. And so for that, we built a platform. Because I had 5 customers, I didn't need to go raise funds. I contemplated it. I'm happy to go deeper into that at the right time with you, Catherine, but I didn't. I bootstrapped the company. And then, let's fast forward into year 3, we now have, 40 B2B customers, 40 biopharmaceutical companies trusting us to enroll their clinical trials. And then other companies in the area, other service providers in the area come along to inquire about acquiring my company, Seeker Health. And I was a little bit taken by surprise. I was very busy building the company. I didn't realize that I had built anything that was already acquirable. But I went through that whole process of understanding whether or not I should sell the company. And then eventually in 2018, I sold the company to a large life science services conglomerate, then stayed on for 1.5 years to help integrate it, and then decided in that process that everything that I had done was quite different from the formula the Silicon Valley in particular issues to entrepreneurs. Silicon Valley tends to issue this formula that says, you have to have a co-founder, you have to be a tech person, you have to get venture funding, you have to try to build this really big company for a very, very big market, right? And I hadn't done any of those things, and yet I was still ending up with a company that had made an impact and that was financially successful. And so that's why I decided to write the book and really start to help other people see that there are other ways to create a company and that you really can do so on your own terms, especially if the formula that is out there is not something that resonates for you.
Yeah. So I love that. And I want to skip ahead to that because you've already brought it up, because I think that's probably the most important thing that resonated with me from your book. And that's this myth that a startup is a unicorn or nothing, right? Because again, the speaker prior to you in the Impact Summit, Liz Sarah from the National Women's Business Council, she points out that the vast majority of female-owned businesses actually don't even have any employees, that they are solopreneurs. And while there are many reasons why we could speculate, why that is, I think the reality just is that when females find entrepreneurship as an opportunity, many of them, the goal is not a billion-dollar, trillion-dollar unicorn company. The goal is financial independence, it's security for their family, it's finding an outlet for their creativity or their skill set. And so their whole purpose in founding a business is different. I want to do a quick poll of our listeners now, or those who are tuning in, so that Sandra and I can know a little bit about who you are. We want to know, do you own a business? And if you do own a business, are you a solo founder? Do you have partners? And maybe how many employees do you have? And while they're answering that, what have you found as you've started to dive into this, new startup mindset and communicate with other women? I like to say, what you put them out, let's be zebras, let's be the gazelles, let's be all these other valuable animals and types of businesses that are out there. How can we as society change the concept of what it means to be a successful startup to adequately value the businesses that women really are founding?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think part of it is with busting this myth, right? That a successful company is unicorn or nothing, right? And so that's the myth, that unless you build a company that is valued at $1 billion, right, that you and your company are nothing. And really nothing could be further from the truth, right? I say in the book, it's one of my favorite sentences that I wrote, that right under unicorns, you have lions, gazelles, zebras, elephants, and all sort of real and well-fed animals, right? And so you don't have to strive necessarily to build a unicorn. If you want to build a unicorn, go ahead, go for it, right? It's an outlier result. People, you're going to have lots of people in your business, right? Because generally to get to that type of level is going to require lots of other investors and people to come into the business to grow it to that level. And that's perfectly fine. That is an option. But if that outlier result is not resonating for you, or is not something you want to set yourself up to that expectation, then build a business that makes an impact and is financially sustainable, right? And so I think, your question is, how can we help society? I think we need to bust that myth. I think we need to give more more visibility to the businesses that are making an impact, that aren't necessarily unicorns. And that's hard to do. But then at the end of the day, all of this is really an inside job, right? So it's about you. And if you are going to feel good about running a business that, let's say, produces $5 million in revenue a year, that's a ton of money, right? And maybe turns a profit of $1.5 million a year, then that's all that matters at the end of the day. You feel good about yourself. You know that you are stretching yourself, you're challenging yourself, you're making an impact, you're delivering financial sustainability for your company. At the end of the day, that's all that matters. And the more people that we have that are doing that, the more that at some point society will turn around and say, oh, wow, you could have a company. I don't have to necessarily go out there and build a unicorn. I can build, a very reasonable, small, medium-sized business that is profitable, that, that meets my specific goals for whatever, for whatever reasons I decided to start this business, right? So I think society is fine. Let's try to change society. But at the end of the day, we just change ourselves, right? And we change our own expectations and work towards meeting those, and not necessarily meeting the expectations that somebody else has placed on us.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think that, after the last recession, we saw the rise of a number of unicorns that took off, from your Ubers and Pinterest and all that. But the number and the number of articles have not been there focused on the millions of other businesses that come from that. We focus on these 10, yes, industry breaking, drastically culturally impactful businesses. But think of what a huge cultural impact all of those smaller entrepreneurs have made, and the growth that we saw in our economy that happened since that last recession. And a huge part of that is the growth in small business ownership and entrepreneurship. So I hope that, whatever crazy recession, pandemic, crisis that we're going through now, I know we're seeing entrepreneurship spur. We see a lot of people seeing the opportunity to start their own businesses. I hope to start driving the conversation going forward at what a great outcome that is, that these people are seeking entrepreneurship, and that
Yeah,
we want to support
absolutely.
them.
Catherine, there's an interesting question here in the Q&A, if you don't mind me picking
Yeah.
it up, because it's related to this. So did you tell the clients that you were a one-person company? Weren't they sometimes hesitant to work with you? So my company was only a one-person company for the first 3 months. Pretty much right after that, I hired a number of contractors to help me because we were already getting some clients, right? The first few clients knew that it was me. But then pretty quickly after that, I had some contractors who weren't full-time employees. They would work 10 hours a week or whatever was necessitated by the projects. But I think those contractors helped in the beginning in the sense that there was a little bit more of a team to present to the client, right? So let's say we were working on a campaign for, a clinical trial. I can bring in the contractor that I had hired to do graphic design, and I can bring in the contractor that I had hired to run the analytics report, right? And so now we looked more like we were a team of people, and indeed we were a team of people. It's just that they weren't yet full-time employees. About 6 months into the company, I did hire full-time employees, and I ended up having a company that at the end had 7 full-time employees and 3 contractors that were regular contractors working on projects. So I was only a solopreneur for a short period of time. If you're going to be a solopreneur for a long period of time, I think that you have to address that. Like, do you want to present yourself as one person, or do you want to present yourself as a team of people? I think in general, most clients prefer to have a little bit of a team that they can count on. And you can build that team by hiring people who are working part-time until you have a full-time job full-time work to give to them.
Yeah. And that is a great question, because the solopreneur and then making that leap to your first and second employee is really, that's the big step that a lot of entrepreneurs have. It's the bringing on a team member, losing some control they might feel like, or just, growing beyond, what their comfort is. But then once you start to grow that team, what we find is it gets easier then to expand and continue to grow. But it can be a really big leap to jump into that. I'm going to share the results of our poll so everyone can kind of see. So we do have quite a few business owners on the call. Can everyone see that? And then a lot of solopreneurs, right? So the next topic, Sandra, that I want to talk into, because I think in this pandemic quarantine, what you talk about in your book and in your talk of single deep focus and making sure that we set aside the time to do the important work that you need to do. I'm going to put another poll up for our participants, but I want you to talk with us because it feels unattainable to me right now. Like, it just feels so hard to set that time aside. So share with us, what do you recommend? How do you put yourself in the mindset to really do the work that needs to be done?
Yeah, absolutely. So we live in a world that generally encourages multitasking, and yet multitasking is not an effective way to create the deep, true work that you need to create, and especially to build what I call the organs of your business, right? They're not done well when you're multitasking, when you're distracted by something else. And so what I found as I was building my company was that it was really in these periods of what I call single deep focus that the company was built and that the company moved forward, right? I moved it forward by devoting these periods of time a single deep focus. The way I define single deep focus is in very extreme ways. It's the type of concentration that if all of a sudden what you most desire would appear on your peripheral vision, you wouldn't even see it, because you're so devoted to what you're working on. You're so focused, then, a bag of money can appear here, or the person, you have a crush on can appear here, and you wouldn't even see that because you are just 100%, devoted to what you're working on. So that's single deep focus. And in the book, what I talk about is how to get there, right? How to create the container basically to get there. And it has to be something that you're mindful about. It doesn't just happen. happen. I don't just wake up and go into a period of single deep focus. I create it. And the way that I create it is, first, I pay attention to the distractions that are going to happen outside of me or inside of me. So all of that has to be turned off. So it means turning off the email, the messaging, sometimes even turning off the Wi-Fi if you don't need to be connected to the internet to do what you need to be doing. So turning all of that off, and then turning the things off that are inside of us, right? So if we're hungry, eat. If you need to go to the bathroom, go to the bathroom, right? Take care of all of those things, and then take care of the mind. Get rid of all of those thoughts that say, I don't want to do this. Why can't somebody else do it? So I go in the book in very exquisite detail as to how to turn all those things off to create the container. And then you're going to set an intention, right? And the intention generally looks like, I'm going to create my slide deck for customers. I'm going to spend 1.5 hours on it. And the reason why I'm going to be doing this work is because this is going to bring more revenue to my company, right? And so set what you're going to be working on, how long you're going to be working on, which generally should be probably up to 2 hours. After that, we tend to lose the ability to focus in such a determined way, and then why you're doing it. And many times what I will do is I will write it on a Post-it, and I will post it right in front of my face, right? So that I know that I'm not going to lose focus. Then I set a timer. So an hour and a half, I'll set 90-minute timer on my phone, and I'll get to work, right? And during that time, I kind of controlled for all the things that could possibly happen. I'm now free to work. And then when the timer rings, I usually stop. Sometimes you want to keep going. You're like, oh, I really got. But generally you have to check in with yourself and say, well, can I really continue to produce high quality work? Or am I starting to type with typos? Am I starting to, see double? So maybe that's a good time to get up and take a break and then return to it. What I found building my company was that these periods, these 1.5 periods of single deep focus were so powerful that the work that I could sort of like bring forth during that time was the equivalent of many, many more hours, right? And so that's why it becomes really important. So Catherine, you asked, how do we do it now? It's coronavirus. It's tough. I have to tell you, it's been really tough. I personally have moved my desk around my own house 4 times. Mm-hmm. I am now in the garage. And the reason why I'm in the garage is because it has a door, right? It has a door to the house. And I found that was really important for me to have a door and to have a place that could be shut off from the rest of the world. I could also put a sign on the door saying, I am currently recording, or I am currently on a live meeting, and I am currently in a period of single deep focus for an hour and a half, right? And
you have children, right? So you have
a
family and the husband and all that. Yes. How many kids do you have?
I have 2 kids. Yeah. They're teenagers, 17 and almost 13, but they need things. And, right now, actually, they're in school, which is great. They're in school at home. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I have a sign that I printed out that I have right there. It says, recording in process, do not disturb. And at the end, it says, you're loved. Right. So I still love you, but I need an hour and a half of time to take to produce something, to take care of something. So, I think right now during coronavirus, what I would add to what I wrote in the book is to, really try to ascertain what is the environment that you need for that hour and a half in order to be able to create something, right? And how can you find that environment in a house that has other people that need other things? And then make it happen for yourself. This is still, an important time to continue to create, I think. And it just gives us the ability to rise to the challenge, right? If I am able to focus now, right, during coronavirus, with my kids at home, with my husband working and having calls and, having another voice that I hear in the background, then, it sort of builds your confidence that you can achieve that focus.
Yeah. And actually one of our other speakers, Lisa, who talks about just thriving through the pandemic, she talks about how setting a time limit and trying to accomplish something tangible really goes a long way towards our overall mental health of accomplishment. Because when we're constantly feeling torn and we're constantly feeling overwhelmed by the amount of choices we have to make or the situation around us, it's so gratifying if you can carve out the time and the space, whether it's something small, but just that you need to do, or whether it's something really large, you know, a large project that's critical to your work, but to give yourself the time and the space to do it, that it's really life-giving and critical to our success to sustain through this, and make sure we don't lose that ability. So I think we see another question.
Yes, let's see. So let's see. Hi, Sandra. I'm a big fan of quite a few Silicon Valley folks who are founders, advisors, and presidents of different unicorn tech companies. They fit the myth of a successful techpreneur, like you mentioned in your book. While their accolades are impressive, the lack of diversity is frustrating. Therefore, it is refreshing to hear your story. What advice would you give to a young female college graduate who is about to begin her startup company when the failure rate of startups are 3 out of 4? So yeah, lots of advice. And I think that that's exactly why I wrote this book, because there's so many places to begin giving advice. I think at the end of the day, it sort of boils down to you carve your own path, right? So there are paths out there that are pre-carved. If they fit for you, if they work for you, then take them, right? So for example, there's accelerators, there's incubators, right? There's all sorts of things that exist out there that provide resources to entrepreneurs. If that resonates for you, if you think that you can get help and you can propel your company in that manner, then go for it. If it doesn't resonate for you for some reason, then just know that there is always another way of doing it, right? I think that at the end of the day, my advice boils down to that. There's always another way to do it. There's always a way to do it on your own terms. And so investigate the formulas that are out there, investigate the paths that the people have carved, but you don't necessarily have to take them. Now, yes, the lack of diversity is completely frustrating in Silicon Valley. And I think I'm not necessarily seeing a path really out of that at this point, right? More of what I'm seeing is, so there's sort of like this venture funding, I guess, formula that worked really well for men. And so now what's popping up is a lot of venture funds that are devoted to helping women get venture funding. So that's great. That's still following the same formula, but now applying it to women. So that works fine. You can go in that direction and get venture funding. You could also not get venture funding, which I didn't. And I'm very vocal about that because it was a very big decision for my company, but it was the right decision, right? Bringing venture would have changed the goals, the tone, the objective, and how the results of the company were being evaluated. And so it wasn't going to work out for me. So first of all, startups fail, but I think it's important for you to kind of like put that aside a little bit, because as an entrepreneur, most of what happens is really in the mind, and the mind actually can conquer through a lot of the situations that are going to come up. And that's exactly why my book is all about mindset, right? It's about really conquering your mind. So by conquering your mind, go ahead, Catherine.
Well, and you talk too about in your book that know that you're going to experience obstacles, know that they will come, and it really is your choice to acknowledge it and say, okay, is this an obstacle that is I can overcome it, or is this a closed door and I need to move on from that? And that applies, I think, to life, not just a startup, but
yes, exactly. So maybe to wrap it up for your question, I want to kind of leave you with maybe like 3 key pieces of advice. The first one is that it is perfectly okay to be a beginner, right? And I have a whole chapter here about the beginner's mindset and really sort of embracing the fact that you may not know how to do half of the things that you need to do for your startup, and then that's perfectly okay. That's the life of the entrepreneur, and that's why some of these startups actually succeed, because they're not working from this pre-approved way of doing it, but they're figuring it out in real time, and they're often finding a better way to do it. So that's beginner's mindset. Number 2, which we covered, is to focus, to really try to focus in every way. Who is the customer that you're serving? What is the product that you're bringing to market? How is it fitting the needs of your customer in the most complete way? And to really find a way to focus on what you're trying to create. And then the last piece would be to expect difficulties, right? Because you are getting difficulties, on your path of building a company doesn't mean that you're failing. It just means that you're exactly on this path of entrepreneurship. It is a path that has hurdles on it, and has closed doors, and has all sorts of obstacles. And that is just how the path of entrepreneurship goes. And so when you're feeling, when you are up against one of these obstacles, you can examine what the obstacle is, what it is trying to tell you, but that doesn't mean you're failing. It just means that you're exactly in the right journey, and the journey of entrepreneurship is like that. So hopefully that advice is helpful to you. At the end of the day, you're on your own journey here, right? And it's great to get advice from other people, but it's also good to propel yourself, right? When at any time that you need that propellant.
And I think it's a really exciting time for female entrepreneurs and young women who are graduating from college, and the opportunity because of the Me Too movement, because of the progress that women have made, over the last 100 years, and beyond. But at this particular point in time, I think the realization that institutions, whether they're the financial institutions or kind of the culture, women have great opportunity right now. And so I think she should be excited. And I think, Andrea, if you have a business in mind that you want to get started, we would love to help you do that, because I think we're going to see fantastic growth in female leaders throughout corporate industry and in entrepreneurship. And I'd love to see you be a part of that. We have another really great question, Vitalia Williams. Is there guilt associated with seeking and working within that single deep focus? Because of course, women, we try to balance, and saying no to something else, or, no to our children, no to anything, can be really difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great question. And I think that there's sort of, again, like a mental process that needs to happen there in terms of when you're serving others and when you're serving your company for your benefit, right? So if you are a woman and you have other responsibilities, you're a mom, you're a wife, those responsibilities generally get plenty of time is my assessment. Like it's we all have sort of like this very maternal instinct that is natural, so it is unlikely that my kids are going to be unfed, right? Like they're going to be fed, they're going to be clothed, they're going to be taken care of. But I think really the key there with a single deep focus is that if I don't focus in a single deep focus manner, it's going to take me 6 hours to do what I'm trying to do. But if I focus in the spirit of single deep focus, it's going to take me an hour and a half to do it. So I always saw it as a great deal, like a great deal for my family, right? Give me an hour and a half to work on this, and then I have the rest of the day perhaps available for other things. But if I don't have this devoted time, now it's going to take me much longer to get this done.
And do you find it during the day? Because for me, I'm like the early morning person, right? If I know there's a project, something I have to write or do or really like put it down there, let me wake up before everyone else when the house is quiet, have really strong cup of coffee and dive in. Because once the day starts, I go all over. But do you achieve single deep focus midday, like 10 in the morning? You're there, you can get there?
Yeah, I can get there. I mean, I think it all depends on sort of how your house runs and what you're looking for. For me, it changes with time, right? Right now, because my kids are in school, generally I wake up, we have breakfast, and then once they are in school, once they're in front of the computer, that's when my period of single deep focus is likely to begin. So I have like an opportunity in the morning, usually sometime between 9 and 11:30, and then I'll have another opportunity after lunch. And then sometimes I'll have another opportunity in the evening. Mm-hmm. But I think that's a really important question, like finding what works for you in your schedule and knowing that that schedule is going to shift with the seasons, right? Mm-hmm. And as the shift with the seasons, then you ask yourself the question again, on any given day, when is my best opportunity to have a period of single deep focus so that I can create what I need to create for my company?
So going back to this idea of talking about the difficulty that women had seeking funding or financing, that women still face a lot of challenges. And again, you address in your book why seeking venture wasn't an opportunity for you. And the speaker before you in the summit, Liz Sarah, also talks about how women just have a tougher row to hoe when it comes to getting banking. And she pointed out that it was only very recently that we actually got rid of the requirement that a woman seek a male relative to co-sign with her to get a business loan. So we are going to poll our participants here just to see who was watching and paying attention a little bit and ask them if they were paying attention. So what year did Congress finally pass a law striking down that requirement? The women must have a male co-signer. And then there's the bonus question of what was the name of that landmark legislation? And we're going to give this a moment to go and see how we do. This is probably one of the things that institutionally women have had to overcome the sense of, for a lot of different reasons, that do we have the equity in the capital, you know, because whether it was, you know, the traditional model of women didn't have jobs right out of college, you know, or out of high school because they were having babies and doing that. So they don't save, they don't have the equity. Maybe if you weren't, you know, didn't have the collateral, you know, to go back and say, oh, you had to have this male co-signer. But when it gets into the 80s and it's like, okay, well, that's not the case anymore. And some of these women that they talk about that testified of the need for this legislation, one was a very established nurse, and she went and testified before Congress about the hoops that she had to jump through because she wanted to start a nursing home, and that there was a Caucasian male with no experience even in the field that within just a few days and with no, you know, having to have backup collateral, didn't have to go get SBA support. The bank just gave him some. And of course, guess which business did better, right? So, you know, and had, you know, a headline grabbing outcome. So it really had to wake up at the national level the assumptions that women weren't ready to own their own businesses, and how that hung around. I'll tell everyone the answer is 1988, and see how everyone did. So the majority of people did pay attention. Yeah, it was 1988. And the name of that landmark legislation actually is HR 5050, the Women's Business Ownership Act. Although I liked the HR too late. That was just something I made up. That wasn't really a thing. And then I'm going to have, and so I have some of my staff that put in a Forbes article that's a little bit more about that HR 5050. I encourage everyone here, and we'll post it in the discussion group, to learn more about how recently that really was, and the mindset that kind of had to be changed, because it's a mindset that women were there. And I have one more bonus question that we're going to mention. This landmark piece of legislation, the HR 5050, also created two things that I think are really important. One, the National Women's Business Council, and our first speaker, Liz Sarah, is the chair of that. And they report to the president and Congress and the SBA every year. They do research about the status of female business ownership, and they suggest policy recommendations to help us continue our march to gender equality and opening opportunities for women. And it also created the pilot program for the Women's Business Center grant program through the SBA, that they could offer grants to fund women business centers around the country. So if in 1988 they created the pilot program for the WBC program, like that funds WeVenture, what year did they finally decide to make that granting opportunity permanent, allowing WBCs like WeVenture to be able to plan for ongoing continuity? So put that in the chat if you know what year that WBCs were finally authorized on a permanent basis. And what we have to offer you is Community Credit Union has a cute little gift bag full of their coffee cup and some of their pens and pencils and a $50 Visa gift card. And I don't mind if you're Googling, you're all at home on a webinar, so feel free to Google. Oh, and there she goes, Beth Gitlin, our winner. Yep, 2007. They finally made the Women's Business Ownership Act permanent, creating women's business centers around the country on a permanent basis. No, Beth, you did it. You win. So that's just some fun trivia. And then the ERA, for those of you who answered the ERA, I'm going to ask Susan or Kathy from my office to post that article about the Equal Rights Amendment. It actually has never, it passed Congress, but it has not been ratified by the states. So there is no past ERA. And if that's something that you've not read up on or that you missed in college women's history class, I highly suggest you read up on that, but we'll discuss that another day. So Sandra, we talked a little bit about Silicon Valley and how is it changing for women. Do you have colleagues or other, like, is there a cohort of female founders that keep in touch there? You know, what is it like now? Because I think, you know, between TV and news reports, we all maybe have a mindset of what the Valley is like, but are there strong female founders out there? Is there a good community then of venture and other support systems that are in place thinking about how can we get more female founders to be successful?
Yeah, I would say there is, and I think that things are moving in the right direction. Not at, you know, sort of like supersonic speed, but they are moving in the right direction in the sense that let's see. So Silicon Valley primarily is an ecosystem that is driven by, you know, who can bring innovation, right? So who are those entrepreneurs that can bring innovation? So you see a lot more women in that than historically speaking, and then who can fund that innovation, right? And you see now that a lot of the venture capital firms have at least one female partner. They generally have more than one female partner, or some of them have more than one female partner. There are also some venture capital funds that have arisen purely to fund women founded businesses. So I think generally things are moving in the right direction. The thing with this is that generally it takes decades, right, to really move the needle, because we're building these businesses, and building a business is really, you know, it takes a decade to see if something truly worked or didn't work. Sometimes things do fail fast, but in general, you know, investors are on these like decade-long horizons. So I think in general, things are moving in the right direction. I think right now with coronavirus, I mean, one of the things that we are seeing here in Silicon Valley is that some people are leaving the Valley. Many of those tend to be more of like the employees that were working at companies, the big companies like Facebook and Google. They don't need to be here until summer of next year, right? Because those companies have decided that you can work from home. And so some of the people are leaving. And I think that that's going to be an interesting dynamic to see, you know, well, when they're leaving, are they going to go to Colorado and Park City and kind of like some of these popular places that people generally go when they leave Silicon Valley? And are they going to start their own sort of mini nodes of innovation and entrepreneurship there?
Well, I
So
can
I
tell you
think,
all around the country, we've been striving to be, you know, like a Silicon Valley, you know, whether you're Austin or Nashville or in Florida, you know, Miami has been a real hot spot, in Orlando, where you see startup culture and tech culture and investment try to take off, and states that would pursue that. And everybody wants to pursue innovation and the startup mindset of fostering that locally. But there was still that idea of, oh, you could get more done, or, oh, there's just more available in Silicon Valley. And I think because of the pandemic, all those communities that for the last couple of years, maybe the last decade, had invested in the infrastructure of innovation, and particularly like for tech there, I think they're really poised now to boom because of that requirement that so many of us are working from home. You know, you don't have the idea that you have to be in New York or the Valley to have access to anything is just, I think, going to be blown right up out of the water. So I hope we see places like Florida, your Austins, your Nashvilles, you know, that are really trying to be tech hubs and just innovation hubs that they'll really benefit from this. Here's a good question from the chat, and I love this. Did you begin with an end game in mind? Like, had you founded the company thinking that you wanted to build something to sell and have a, you know, financial exit, you know, or what was your impetus for founding the company?
yeah, great question. And no, I did not begin my first company with the end game in mind. I'm beginning my second company with the end game in mind because now I have more experience, but I didn't. I began my first company purely thinking there's a need here. It's not well served. I have part of the equation to bring a solution. I'm missing the other half, but hopefully I will find it. And initially I'll build a service business because that can get me paid. And then I'll see where it takes me. So, but ideally, you know, if you are more experienced and have a little bit more foresight than I did at that time, you could begin a business with an end in sight. And you can say, you know, I need to build a business. I want to get to $1 million in profit, because I know that when I get to $1 million in profit, I can begin to attract acquirers that might be out there. And then I can begin that process of trying to search for those acquirers. So, I mean, I think ideally, yeah, maybe you do have the end game in mind. I didn't. I really feel like the first time around, it was like, well, let me just see how this goes, right? And so I couldn't quite think of all the steps ahead.
We find often too that sometimes there are two thoughts that come to mind, that entrepreneurs are so excited about starting a business and building a business that sometimes they don't think ahead to what is the end game? Like, what is your goal?
Yes.
And so part of what we like to do when we help them focus on their strategy is to really define that, because it's not just about always meeting your company or building and doing this, but what's your, you know, bigger picture foundation. And then the other opportunity that we see really unique now is there are so many, as a generational shift is happening, boomer business owners looking to sell an established business, you know, that probably has a strong, thriving customer base, has, you know, maybe capital, physical, you know, locations and people and equipment. And they're looking for aspiring entrepreneurs to buy into their business, that they can train up and do that succession planning.
Yes.
And so entrepreneurship, I think in the next couple of years, we need to be opening women's minds, especially because maybe that has a little bit less upfront risk, you know, to find a business that's in place that you can acquire and take over, and you can be the one.
Yes. And I think maybe for Beth, just to round out the answer there, you know, the end game can be many different things, right? So the end game could be, I want to run this company for 10 years. The end game can be, I want the company to be acquired, right, between years 5 and 10. The end game could be, I would like this company to go IPO. Right? The end game could be, I want to pass this company down to my children, right? To continue to run after I'm done running it. So I think there's a lot of thinking to be done there as to what you want the end game to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody's different, and that's okay. And that's, again, one of the things that we see with our clients that come through the door. Every business is unique and different. And so really helping women understand their options and finding the path that's best for them, that's our end game, and that they find success in whatever their business is going to look at. I love this. So Andrea, we have another question. How has failure, or maybe apparent failure, set you up later for success? And do you have a favorite fail? Oh, I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think apparent failure is probably the better way to describe what's happening in a business, because like none of it is really truly failure. It's more like you're collecting data. So let's say, for example, like, you know, you're going into the market and you think that the service that you're going to be providing is for biopharmaceutical companies, but then you discover that also these advertising agencies that sell to biopharmaceutical companies are also interested in your service, right? But then you go to talk to them and it doesn't work. They're not willing to pay, you know, the price that would make this profitable or whatever it is. It isn't a failure. It's more like a redirection, right? It's not like we failed with advertising agencies. Is that we got data and we decided, okay, that's not where this business is at. That's not where we're going to have the best product market fit for a company. So I think that that's the way to think about the apparent failures that are happening in your company, and to turn them into success is to learn from them, is to use the data for redirection, right? And say, okay, well, if something didn't work here, it might work over here, in using that information. So my favorite failure of mine during the Seeker Health time is that Seeker Health was working, and then all of a sudden I was sort of like growing in confidence and decided to start a second product within the business. And this was going to be basically these databases of patients with rare diseases that then we can get ahead of time before having a clinical trial, and then turn them around and help the biopharmaceutical company access them at the right time. And, sort of planned this project, actually had a customer that was interested in going in this direction and deployed it. And then all of a sudden, lots of bad things started happening. There was a company that reached out to us with a cease and desist letter that the name of the product that we were using was really close to the name of their company. And they wanted us to stop. There was a patient advocacy group that was really upset that we were working in their space and sort of like territorialism. And in the book, I write about all of this as these being closed doors, right? These being sort of like they weren't quite obstacles, quite hurdles that we might be able to get through, but there was, like 3 to 4 of them that happened all within a week of each other. And it was sort of like a big message of, market's not ready in this direction. And I can keep pushing my head against this wall. I can keep weakening myself through this stress and through, this failure, or I can redirect myself, right? And go back to product one, which is working, and try to expand that, right? And so that's probably like my favorite failure, because it really helped me begin to tease out the types of obstacles that we face, and that not all obstacles that we face, we need to overcome. Some, we need to take a step back and go in the other direction, because the water is just not flowing in that direction at this time. And so, so that's my favorite failure, and that's what I learned from it.
And timing, that's such an important thing, because I think to be a successful business entrepreneur, it's not just about having the right resources and skill set, but timing can make a big impact on it, and maybe you do have that really great idea, and this just isn't the time, whether in your life or in the market. I'm married to a serial entrepreneur, and we talk about that all the time, that sometimes the timing is in your favor, and sometimes it's something that, we've believed in and we thought was a great product, but it wasn't the time for it, right? So, when does he get to move on, from doing that? And that's not a failure. That's just learning. That's a data point, like you said, and taking and learning from that.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, we have just a few minutes left before we go. So I want to end with 2 quick things, Sandra. We have some more giveaways from other speakers. We have other books to give away. And so I have General Ann Dunwoody, who is the first female 4-star general. She actually gave us some signed copies of her book. And so I would love for you to pick a number between 1 and 450, and we're going to go to our registration list and give that lucky numbered person a signed copy of General Dunwoody's book. So do you have a favorite number or lucky number you want to share with us?
I'll pick 318.
318. All right. Well, we'll look on the list and send an email out, and I'll post in the private group, because that person is going to get a signed copy of General Dunwoody's book. And I want to leave it open to you. So you have been speaking for a couple months now, right? The book's been launched and you've been on these speaking tours. How's your motivation? What do you hear from the community and during all of this that's keeping you going and motivated? Because I know now all of a sudden we're looking to you, and you probably, I've seen it on your LinkedIn and all that. You have fans and followers, and we're following you looking for inspiration. So how are you keeping your motivation going and staying excited about your next business during this difficult time?
That's an interesting, a really great question. I mean, for me right now, with this second business and whatever other work that I'm doing, the motivation has turned a lot more into how can we make an impact? How can we help people with whatever it is that their need is? And then kind of letting the financials sort of work from there, right? If we're helping and we're providing value, then eventually the financials should work out, which is very different than the way that I approached my first business, which was all about really initially making a salary for myself, then making a salary for other people, and then running a profitable company, right? So very different right now. So I think that that's what keeps me motivated, of sort of using, my time, my creativity, my resources to bring to market other products and services, education, books that might, at the end of the day, help a person. And, with all this speaking that I've been doing, I think at the end of the day, what I appreciate the most is the personal notes that I get, sort of saying, okay, I'm an entrepreneur, and, thank you for motivating me for today to keep going. Thank you for showing another way of doing it. Thank you for showing a little bit of what's behind the scenes of being an entrepreneur. So that definitely keeps me going to the next stop.
Yeah, well, I couldn't agree more, because it has been an honor to get to know you over these last couple of months. And I can't wait to share with you and hear the feedback from our clients and those who are registered for this, that watch this with you, because you do have an inspiring story. And there are so many women out there that need to be reminded that they can build the company that they're uniquely suited for and find success in however they want to define success. And organizations like WeVenture and the National Women's Business Council, we will be here to support them every step of the way and advocate for them. Well, that's great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Sandra. This is going to wrap up our kickoff session for Impact. And hopefully, some of you are planning to get together with friends, colleagues, either today, Monday, or over the weekend, and talk about all 5 of our great talks that we've put together for you. And if you are enjoying this, it's not too late. You can still invite friends to go to weventure.fit.edu and register for the Impact Summit. We'll send them all the details they need to access the fantastic pre-recorded video, and then this great content with live events like what we had with Sandra today. So thank you so much. Be well, and I hope the fires stay so very far away from you and your family. And
thank you for that, Catherine. And it was a pleasure being with you today.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful afternoon, and we will talk to you on Monday at noon when we do another live webinar, our closing session with Lisa Deinhofer, the Crisis Tamer, talking about thriving through this pandemic. All right. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Bye, everyone.